If you're listening to this podcast, it means you're searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. I am Dianne A, your host. My roles as ambassador, author, speaker, and intuitive mentor for bright and talented people are woven into each episode. I have the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as I have been there and I understand your unique intensities, sensitivities, and challenges. Welcome. Emotional intelligence and gifted teams in the workplace. Hi, friends. It's Dianne at Someone Gets Me, and I have the coolest guest. Her name is Danielle Thompson, and she is one of the brilliant minds behind the production of this podcast. She also was one of the inspirations of why I even started doing video podcasts 4 years ago, I think, maybe 5. I don't know. It was a while ago. Anyway, Danielle, I have been begging to come on the show for a long time, and she finally said yes. And we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and intuition and managing teams, because they have a large team with their company. So they're managing their internal team, but she also has to manage the external teams. So I thought she'd be the perfect person to talk about how to do that. So we met, Danielle and I, at a conference, and I saw her across the room. And you know how you get attracted to somebody, as gifted people, we feel the energy. Well, I felt her energy. And on one of the breaks, we started talking. And sure enough, we had so many things in common, especially our love for metaphysics, our love for the higher realms, our love for intuition. And we just knew it. So we've been fast friends ever since then. And I'm so grateful she's on the show today. So get your tea, get ready for this great show, and welcome to Someone Gets Me, Danielle.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Dianne. I always love spending time with you. I always, when we first met, I knew that I needed to know you. And I'm so glad that we had that opportunity to meet, and to work together now.
Yes, it's so great. I love how the synchronicities just kept happening and it just rolled right out perfectly. And I couldn't be any happier myself. So I have some questions I'd like to ask you. And I want you to remember, if there's any cool stories you want to share, please do that. I want to talk about emotional intelligence, because I think with gifted people, we all are in our head and we're rewarded for how smart we are. But I also think there is that knowingness emotionally that really can bring home cohesiveness in a team. So how do you use your emotional intelligence, because you're quite emotionally intelligent, in the management of your team at work?
Mm-hmm. So actually, I first started at a little store. I'm going to go way back, because
Okay.
this is I learned how to have more emotional intelligence. I actually worked for a big retailer, Marshalls. Everybody loves, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Home Goods. And I worked at Marshalls for 8 years of my life, and I got promoted to upper management, operations management. And I was managing a team of 30, and then I went into managing a team of 60. And at the time, it's you have to know how to have some type of emotional intelligence in order to, make a lot of money in the business, as well as have empathy for the people and work through the people and not just be boss people around. And so when we first started the Serious Take Productions and our brand Broadcaster Authority, we have a team of 20 that we're working with. And it's important to me that I don't like to go into too deep a detail of knowing their personal lives so much. I like to give it a little space there, but I do like to know what are their hobbies? Are they big movie addicts? Do they like to go to the movies, or do they have other hobbies? Do they like to color or art, or what are their hobbies? Because I want to go and, when their birthday rolls around, I want to be hey, I just bought you this gift card or this art set or this, and just show that I actually listen. I think having emotional intelligence is about listening. And Dianne, you're a great listener. I love when we were in the studio last week and you were asking such thoughtful questions. And I think that you have to have a high emotional intelligence to be able to listen, have empathy for people, for their needs, to also be a big problem solver when it comes to having the emotional intelligence too. Is like, if somebody comes to you with a problem, how are you going to help them resolve it, and just be there for them as well.
Oh, that's perfect. So, do you ever get any resistance from people that you're trying to be there for them? Like you're trying to be emotionally intelligent and present, and then they resist and throw up the wall. How do you handle that? Because that sounds kind of difficult.
Yeah, I think it's about taking a step back and looking at the overall picture and then asking questions too. Like, do you need this space? Do you need some space for yourself? Like, just asking the right questions, because there are, like, I have family members. I haven't really encountered that so much in business because a lot of our clients, like, they hire us because we're a service. And so they want service work. But when it comes to like family, occasionally I've had some family that have more of a wall up, or they're too prideful to accept help, or whatever that looks like. And I'll take a step back. I'll ask open-ended questions of like, what what do they need? And is it financial support? Is it just more of emotional support? Do they need to talk it out? Or do they just need space completely? And I think that's how I deal with that, basically.
Right. And so by asking that open-ended question, you then honor what their response is.
Yes.
I've had so many times in my life where people said, "What do you need?" And I said, "Just leave me alone. I need some space. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk." And then they keep wanting to talk. And I'm like, okay,
It's because you're an empath. I
right.
think that, like, I've had throughout my entire life, I've had people that is complete strangers come up to me and they just tell me their whole life story of, like childhood trauma and like these really deep stories that, I'm not going to share with anybody else. But I mean, I think that's just being part of being an empath too, is
Mhm.
having, that's why they keep talking to
Yeah,
you.
keep on going. They keep on going. And it's like, no, I need space. No, they keep on going. And,
Yeah.
and that's okay because there's a part of me that's learned how to kind of navigate that, and kind of be pliable. But I grin sometimes inside, like, okay, clearly that person's desire or need, if you will, to be heard is
Mhm.
much greater than my temporary need for space because I can get that later. And validating and hearing that person is more important in that moment.
Exactly.
You
Yeah. A
know,
lot of people just want to be heard,
right.
and they needed somebody to share it with. And if they're sharing it with a stranger, then there's no risk to opening up and sharing stories that they've never shared with anybody before.
Right. Totally. That's true. So Broadcaster Authority is a media company.
Mhm.
And so I still have this curiosity. All right. So Tamara, the co-founder, who Tamara's been on this show too, so I'm sure they'll put a link to Tamara's interview in the show notes. But totally different personalities, really cool, both cool people. But here's what I want to know: how do you, the intuitive, empath, gentle being that you are, and introverted, handle the perceived expectations in the media world, like with the different technology people and that person and the this that can sometimes, at least I think, get sensory overwhelming for us introverts. Like, can we just go like hug our dog? Like, give us a break. How do you do that?
For so long, I have been the behind the scenes person, as you know, and I help my clients broadcast their authority out into the world. I mean, there's so many messages that they're sharing that are super important. I mean, there's like things that are educational, like toxicity in your household, that you would never even think about. But then some of our clients are, when they're doing their podcast, they're getting that information out there to the world, and they're like, whoa, like, I didn't know that you're not supposed to use dryer sheets. Like, it creates a lot of toxicity for your household and as well as to your neighbors. Like, and that's just like little things I didn't think about. So I've always been like a Robin to the Batmans in the world, and so the sidekick. And it wasn't until recently that, and because I do a lot of behind the scenes consulting for our clients, that I realized, you know what, I need to be out there, even though I'm an introvert and I don't want my face out there. Like, I probably won't go back and listen to my voice on this podcast. It's a little scary for me. But I think it's important that we all have messages to share, and they're super valuable. And you're not going to connect with everybody. Like, it's going to be like a light switch. Like, you're not going to connect with everybody, but for the ones that you're meant for, it'll be like a light switch turned on for them to like listen to you and hear you out and learn from you as well. Like they need you, you know? So that's why I'm putting myself out there this year, even though I don't want to, is because I know a lot about marketing and operations. And I would love to like share that more with people. And another part of me is I'm an empath and very intuitive. And so I've been on a lot of other psychic podcasts that are just fun to be on and I enjoy to do.
Yeah. So having intuition in the business world pays off huge,
Yep. Oh,
especially if you're
completely.
paying attention to it and learn and you know how to trust it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a requirement if you want to be successful in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like when I first met Tamra, she had a production company. Her focus was primarily working with musicians from like American Idol, The Voice, X Factor. And at the time they were paying her and you can sleep on my couch. Or here's a coupon, right? Like here's a coupon to a restaurant. And so when I came into the company, I was like, we need to focus on small businesses, entrepreneurs, because we were watching like Shark Tank and shows like that. And so because like we started, you know, collaborating on the direction of our clientele, like I used my intuition to like help guide us to a different, you know, target market. So I thought that was really important, pivotal moment in our career is like, you know, she was also focused on weddings as well. So a lot of wedding videography. So we made some intuitive shifts in our company because of it.
Yeah, and because of your intuition, you could carve out the niche that really aligns with both of your being gifted and both of your talents and the synergy of what both of you bring to the table. And then you add your team to that, and it becomes something greater, just greater in so many different ways.
Completely,
Yeah.
completely.
To me, that's really magical when people come together and they honor the synergy of their giftedness, not like trying to be like I had people before years ago in my career going, I'll never be like you. And I'm like, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be you because you plus me is something greater, but you trying to be like me taints you. You're squashing yourself or doing something, and then you're not able to step into what you need to in order for the thing to grow, whatever it has been. So I find it.
Diane, I want to be like you when I grow up.
No, you don't want to be in my mind too much of the time because it can get tricky up here. Seriously. Okay. So in all of the work you do a lot of work, you do a lot of travel, you do a lot of events and things like that. There's a lot to your business. You are not just sitting around behind a computer in a little tiny desk all the time.
Right.
And so I'm curious of what you do personally for your own welfare. Like, what does Danielle do to take care of Danielle? Because most gifted people have a hard time with this self care thing, but I'm talking about even deeper than just the word self care. Like, what do you do to keep up with all of these things?
I have three King Charles Cavaliers, and so I'm constantly just like letting them, like giving them kisses all day. It's like an addiction. It's like, but I love my dogs. We can go on a lot of walks. I have a row machine, so I go rowing. I know you sail and I row, so I don't know how to sail though. And then we also have a pool, so I like to lay out by the pool a lot and catch some vitamin D and read a book. I read a lot of business books, and so that's how I kind of like relax and debrief. But I also like to be, I don't like to do that for that long anymore. Like it's just kind of like a hour thing a day. Like the dogs I spend all day, I could spend all day with, but like for my me time, I only spend like an hour a day on it, and then I just like jump into work. So very focused on the business, and I know I sometimes should be more focused on my self care and boundaries.
So, what about the business lights up your soul?
I just absolutely love like helping people scale their businesses. Like one of the things that I just learned, I was born in 1988, and I learned that women couldn't even get a business loan until 1988.
Mhm.
36 years and men could get loans out, but women couldn't. Like that's wild to me. And also that only there's only like I think I don't want to throw out the percentage, but there's only a small percentage of women business owners that hit seven figures in annual revenue. And to me, that was shocking because I was like, why is that? It seems so easy to certain people, but then for other people, it's a lot harder. And like, why is that? And so like, what really lights me up is like coming up with the creative marketing strategies, because it's not always black and white. Like, oh, you pay for ads, you're going to get a bunch of clients. There's other strategies that you can do in your company to drive more clientele and more of the right people to you and your business. So I get really excited about scaling businesses. And then I'm really excited about the podcasting side because I believe that everybody has a important message to share and to inspire and get their voices out there, and to be heard and seen is so powerful.
Yes, and podcasting is so intimate, especially if somebody's listening audio and they've got headphones on. It's a like a one-on-one or a two-on-one, whatever, like relationship. And I mean, I've had people show up where I'm doing speaking engagements and say, I've listened to every one of your shows, and they act like they're my best friends and they know me really intimately. And they probably know more about me than some of my friends, because my friends probably don't listen to the podcast and hear the stories, but they think they know me really well, and I don't even know their name. But on some level, they do know me, and I think that's true with all of us in those ways where we're yearning for the connection. And podcasting is a really powerful connection.
Yeah, and just, like when we first met, you were doing the audio only podcast, and then you started doing YouTube, and I was like, this is amazing because people get to see your demeanor, the way that you handle yourself. Like I love your backdrops, like, the little, I think that's a crane, right?
It's a heron. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I just like people get to know you, and it is an intimate thing, and you are building deeper connection with people, and that's why we're here on Earth. Like we're meant to build stronger connections with other people. It's very important. So.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a crane on that side.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's the one I was looking at.
The
Just
little
kidding.
ones, I just realized I put the crane in here. And my little black puppy is trying to climb up on my lap. So
And
everybody,
he's gonna join us
you
because we
might
love dogs.
have to like let Allie come with us. You can hang out right here, okay, sweetie. Anyway, she likes to join in the podcasting, and that's one thing I love about podcasting is it's personal in that way. I have this one friend of mine who he's been doing his podcast forever, and he had this cat, and every time he was recording, the cat would walk down the hall, meow, 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 and in the background you could always hear the cat. No, and not loud. It didn't distract you from the podcast, but you knew that he was a person, and it was a home, and it wasn't so overly polished that it was sterile. It was real and cozy kind of. And so I think
That's the best podcast.
that's one of the best podcasts that there is. So another question that I have is, you guys travel a lot and you do a lot of really amazing things in addition to your work. But where is a place that you've been that surprised you?
Wow. So we've been to a lot of places, like you said. There's so many beautiful places. Like one of my favorites is Sedona, first off, like
Mhm.
Sedona, Arizona. I love the energy of the mountains, the portals. I always go to the crystal stores. I always love that. But one of the most impactful things recently for us was going to Egypt and climbing the Great Pyramid and going in the tombs. And I actually tripped down the Great Pyramid and I did a little tumble and twisted my ankle. So that was fun.
So you have a story now, I guess, right?
Yeah, can you imagine? And then I was also 70 pounds heavier when I was actually climbing up the Great Pyramid. So that was an uncomfortable period. But we had a great awakening there, and we were going down the tombs, and it was like, if you ever been to Egypt and you go to like down into the tomb area, some of it is like a trek down a mountain, like in these really tight spaces. And I realized at that point, like, man, I gotta lose weight because I was at my heaviest. And it really wasn't until that period of being in the energy of Egypt that I felt the awakening that I needed to make a big change in my life. So I'm glad I got to go to Egypt. The scenery is amazing. The Nile River cruise was great. And yeah, I think Egypt was one of my most interesting trips I've been on recently.
It's really neat. And so within the trip was this
Mhm.
amazing awakening that
Mhm.
helped transform you to yet another level of your intelligence, your intuitive and your emotional and your cognitive intelligence. So how have you woven some of those new awakenings into your work world with your teams since Egypt?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because you naturally have somehow, I'm sure, because when we have an
Yeah,
awakening, it affects us.
yeah, with the teams. So it's me being more proactive in my communication with the team and making sure I'm receptive to the feedback that I'm getting from team and the feedback from even clients. Is like before when I used to receive feedback, I was kind of shut off to it. I'm just like, no, this is like sometimes I didn't agree with the feedback I was receiving. But like there's just something about the energy of Egypt when I came back, and it like opened the way that I communicate with my team better. And having more of the teaching moments of like how can we do things better, like how can we also, like example, like in Egypt there's different languages, right? And so it's like how can we integrate like captions that can promote different languages on YouTube? There's like different technology that we could be using to get more innovative. And that was just something that I thought about because we had like a lot of people in Egypt that were like, how do we start a podcast? How do we start a podcast? And I was like, oh, well, but the primary thing was they didn't want it to just be English speaking. And so there's different ways that you can add like different languages on YouTube in the captions. And then as well as like for the micro clips too. So
Oh, that's really exciting. So
yeah.
I think one of the things that's a benefit of being a gifted person with all this intuition is no matter where you are, whether you're on vacation or whether you're working, whether you're just walking down the street, that these intuitive hits, I call them like these inspired ideas, just pop in. And then when we start walking down the road of them or enacting them somehow, we start seeing where they're going. And it's not always the same direction that we thought it was going to in the beginning.
Mhm.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
That's really, really cool. So, how about telling everybody about? I know you guys are all loving Danielle. She's great. So, how about telling everybody a little bit about what Broadcaster Authority is and what you do? Because you do much more than just one thing. And then we'll have more questions about that.
Yeah, so Broadcaster Authority, we are a premier podcast and content marketing agency, or we consider ourselves a media company. And our primary goal is to broadcast our clients' authority, to get our clients more visible on different social media channels, on their websites. Like there's different strategies that we do to consult our clients on getting better reach, better downloads, more growth, as well as more clients, and how to drive more leads to their podcast and to their business. And so the whole purpose is to get your message out there and get your voice heard, and then also just drive that organic growth back to your business as well.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really wonderful. I love it. So, I have only a couple more questions for you. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that I haven't mentioned or asked about yet?
I just want to share that, like me seeing you in studio recently, we're gonna go back there visually, and when you're talking about helping neurodivergent kids and adults, I thought that was really cool, and you really inspired one of the gals that we had on the panel, and she actually was brought to tears. She was crying, and in the back of the studio, she came to me and she said, "I know why I was meant to be here today," and it was because of Dianne. She's like, I'm a neurodivergent and I needed to be here today to meet Dianne. And I thought that was so impactful. And that's why you do what you do when someone gets me, because you want people to feel heard. That's why we work together like that. We're getting your message out there, and like people need you. And I'm so grateful and honored to know you as well. And your mission is just a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you so much. So, okay, now I'm all emotional. So now I lost track of what I was going
Like she was bawling, crying. It was really so beautiful to
Yeah,
see
well,
how it impacted her.
at one point she came up to me and she grabbed my hand, like, to thank me. And I had rings on and I'm like, okay, okay. Like, she's grabbing me so hard. And I'm like, wow, is amazing. And on the plane ride out from Charlotte to Vegas, I had to get a later flight because there were all these delays and it was very frustrating. And my operations manager kept saying, call Tamara and Danielle and tell them you're not coming. or come and go the next day. I said, no, I'm going. I'm going. I mean,
Wow.
this is
And
what I'm
imagine
doing.
if you couldn't make it and
And
you made it.
so I'm on the plane and I'm sitting there, and the woman sitting next to me was like visibly not feeling well. She was rubbing her eyes and everything. And I thought, oh, if she's physically sick and I'm sitting next to her in a 4 hour flight, that's not going to look good. But then she didn't look physically sick, but I was nervous about that at first, right? So after a little while, she just you could just tell she was struggling. And I'm like, okay, I'm an introvert. I typically do not insert myself in other people's lives. In fact, I don't know that I ever have. And my jacket I was wearing was like a coppery color, and so was hers. And I've never seen, they weren't the same copper, but they were similar. So I finally reached over and said, are you okay? And then she started sharing about how she had aircraft incidents when she was in the military. And she was really nervous about being on the plane, but she was flying to see her daughter do a fencing competition. And her husband was over there, and she was coming to meet them, and all of these things. And we talked the whole way to Vegas. And at the end, she said, thank you so much, because she didn't have to be all stressed out for the whole trip. And then when we got in the airport, she was such a sweetheart. She followed me to baggage claim. She made sure I got in the taxi. She like took care of me all through the airport. It was so sweet. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't follow my intuition. And I didn't say, I'm going out there and I'm going to do this. And this decision's made. And the opportunity opened for me to use my free will to choose to say, okay, let me just insert myself here. And I've never really done that before. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about having emotional intelligence and intuition in general, is that we have the ability to kind of follow, even if we're not sure where it's going.
Yeah. And I mean, how impactful and powerful is that you didn't even think you were going to show up and you met two people that really needed you to show up and that's amazing. And like for me too, like I'm a huge introvert. I don't like to put myself out there. I don't like, like I said, I don't like to even hear my voice. But when I think about it, even when it comes to like sales calls, example, like it's not about us. It's about the other people, and that's the thing is like we're here to help emotionally guide people into a path that, I don't really know, but usually it's just to emotionally be there for people so that they feel seen and heard. And you're doing that in your line of work. And it's so beautiful to see that.
Oh, cool. Thank you so much. I love what I do. It's kind of like you. Like I spend time on me, but I love my work. And that's what makes me happy. If I'm not really doing something regarding my work, whether it's writing my next book or doing a podcast or seeing somebody I'm working with, then after a while, if it goes on too long without enough, you know, varied experience, I guess, because it's one thing after the other doesn't work either. And the
Yeah.
novelty, I guess, then I start feeling a little nihilistic, like, what's the point? And then something will always happen. But I like to keep that diversity flowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, your final question is, um, if we were going to put a billboard up that has Danielle's quote that you want the whole world to see, that represents you, what would that quote be?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm put on the spot here. Um, I don't want it to be cheesy, so I just feel like I have to really think about this.
You can think about it as long as you want to. We have all day.
Yeah, well, I've always like felt like, and it goes with us being introverts, is like when you do feel a lot of resistance, that's a sign you should go after it.
Mhm.
And it's always that moment, like there's been times where, and intuitively in your gut if not something's not meant to be for you, but at the same time there's a different feeling when you have certain resistances that you need to recognize as fear. And when you just push through it, that's where the transformation really is. So when there's resistance, you know, you should go after it at times when it doesn't feel like it's a gut feeling of just telling you no, but it's just more so fear. So
Right. So that existential fear you're talking about, the function of it is to be prepared, which is exactly what you're saying. And a lot of
mhm.
people think that all fear is in fight, flight, or freeze, and that would not be correct. That's a part of it. But there's another part of fear that's very important to understand, and that is the existential part. What's the function, because it has a function, and the function is get ready for whatever it is, right? To do the thing, to push through, to, maybe you need to do your homework before you go take the test, or maybe whatever it is, you need to pack before you go on the cruise. You need to make sure you have things in line. And so we might have that fear, but that doesn't mean run from it. And it doesn't mean to cripple ourselves. It means get ready. That's the function. And then we deal with the emotional part. And so that's exactly what you're describing, which is, I think, so powerful for us to remember, because us as humans, we feel a little fear sometimes and we want to just hold our breath and shut down. It doesn't serve us very well to do that all the time.
I completely agree and that's a sound bite right there.
There you go. That's perfect. Okay. So everybody, thank you very much for listening. And I know you got a lot of wisdom from Danielle, and of course, all her contact information is in the show notes, as is mine. And I want to thank you, Danielle, for coming on the show with me. And I've been bugging you for years, and you finally said yes. And I'm so happy, because I think what you said is so useful and powerful, because I think so many introverted people who have the sensitivity like you hold themselves back thinking they could never be successful. And they're in error when they think that. And you're a living example that you can step out of that comfort zone enough and really pull off something amazing. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
What a riot. All right, everybody, remember, put your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a purpose. So remember what Danielle says: when you feel that fear and resistance, give yourself permission to go for it when it's right. Till the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne and Danielle saying, be well. Are you tired of searching for someone to understand you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, and talented. I share my insights and teachings, and you can connect with others in a real, authentic, safe forum. So join us today. Someone Gets Me.